Okay, so welcome to the skill drill, is what I feel like I'm going to affectionately call this sort of thing, where I pop out of a skill or pop out of a sew along to give some specific details on a specific skill. This one being how to create your binding. Now, binding is something that can be a little intimidating, but not when you go through this. Okay, so what we're going to do in this here skill drill is I'm going to take you through what it means to go ahead and prep your binding pieces, give you a couple of tips and tricks that work for me, as well as show you what it looks like to go ahead and put it onto this here tank dress. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Doing binding does not have to be as complicated as it can be made to feel, right? So to make our binding today, we're going to obviously take our binding piece, and then we are also going to go ahead and also utilize a clapper. If you're like, Aaronica, what is a clapper and why do I need it? This is a clapper. It's wooden. This one right here is an artisan one, and I love this one so much. So here's the thing about a clapper. One of the things that I've had to learn over the years, right, is that the biggest issue that we have when it comes to pressing out things is not giving it enough time to like stay in the pressed motion or like have that opportunity to kind of cool before we move on to the next step. So utilizing your clapper really helps that, and it kind of like solidifies whatever it is that you're pressing down. So to prep our binding piece, you do want to make sure that it's nice and pressed out first so that there's no wrinkles. So we're going to do that. I'm going to show us how we prepare our binding pieces on these binding pieces. And these are extra wide binding pieces. The pattern that this is for, it comes with two different options as far as binding size. I opted to go for the thick binding because I love the way that looks. So to prepare your binding, you're going to first fold it in half and press. And I do recommend, of course, using a nice hot iron for this. Makes a difference. I'm going to put that clapper on there so that it has a chance to cool. Now that this has cooled, we're going to go ahead and open it up. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fold it in half, that lower part on up to that first middle section. And we're going to press that again. Then we're going to do the exact same thing to the top part as well. Now, I will say that if you are using something with steam, I'm going to put this down here so that can so that can dry or get cold there. If you're using steam with your iron, just be aware of how that steam comes out, because as you guys can see, the steam is like coming out on your girl. So just be mindful of that so that you don't end up burning yourself, okay? So we're doing that to the end. Now what we're going to do is we're going to fold it in half back to that original, back to the original halfway point that we put. And now our binding is prepped. So I'm going to go ahead and put this off to the side with our clapper on it so that it can cool in that position. And then we're going to go ahead and add that. Okay, so for our binding, we're going to go ahead and take our strips that we did prepare right here, and we're going to open up that binding piece. And you can see here where we have our memory hem, that's what it's called, when we prepare our binding. So we're just going to put our right sides together. So I want the binding to actually be folding towards the center. We're going to just line this up, and then we're going to go ahead and pop this into your sewing machine or your serger, and we're just going to sew straight down that short side. Just like this. So we've sewn straight down that short side, and we still have that memory hem right there. So now I'm going to go ahead and remove this large board off of my machine, because now it's time to go ahead and attach the binding to the actual garment. So when we do this, what we're going to do is starting, and again, I'm doing the armband. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the right side of the fabric and I'm going to line it up with the wrong side of my actual, what I'm attaching it to. So it's going to be like this, just so that again, we can see it. This is the wrong side that we have up, and the right side is facing the inside or the wrong side of the garment here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sew a circle attaching this binding piece to this armhole. So now when you're sewing this, make sure that all of your pieces are lined up properly, because you don't want to miss out on a piece of fabric because you didn't line it up in the beginning, okay? So again, we're just going to go ahead and sew around this armhole with our binding piece, evenly stretching it out. And if you're like, Aaronica, how much stretch does it require? I highly recommend going ahead and quartering these pieces just like you would normally do for a neckband or a waistband. And go ahead and take your time as you do this attachment, because I would rather you take time to get it done the right way rather than have to take time to correct it. And that is that truth. Again, our seams over here are nested. And then if you didn't like pin or clip it in place, one of the things that you can just do is make sure that it's lining up evenly as you go around your corners and things like that. Okay, so now the first part of that band is attached. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to end up folding this down the same way that we had ironed it. So we've got this coming up to meet in the middle, and then we're going to end up doing a top stitch over this area. So I'm going to go ahead, pop in some clips, and I'm going to do this with my cover stitch like I said. So I'll go over my cover stitch settings with you as well. Okay, so now that I've got this completely clipped in place, it's time to top stitch. Okay, so now that I've gone ahead and reset my machine up to be a cover stitch, what we're going to do is we're going to pop our garment in here, and we're going to be sewing close to this edge right here to connect this folded edge to the garment. So I like to start with my armpit. It's just purely out of habit. There is literally no rhyme or reason for it. It is just something that I have always done. So let's go ahead and sew. Now, as you get to this, where your seams meet, it is a little bit thicker, so you will have to go a little bit slower, especially if you're using a cover stitch machine. You don't want to cause any issue. And sometimes when we go a little bit faster than what the machine can handle, that can be one of the bigger causes for issue whenever we're sewing. And here we are up close and personal. And again, it's fine to go slow, right? We don't have to rush through this. I feel like one of the things that can make doing binding intimidating is if you are used to going fast because of the bands. The very first garment that I ever did that required binding was the Essential Tank from Patterns for Pirates. And I would never do the binding because I was always so nervous about it, because you do have to just take it a little bit slow. I do think that doing a wider binding makes things so much more easy, especially if you're getting used to doing binding for the first or your first couple of times. I do love the way that this thicker binding works. The first time that I did this thicker binding was for the Callie dress, which was my first design with Made for Mermaids. And since then, I have been absolutely in love with a thick binding. So now that we have reached the end, or rather the beginning, I'm going to go ahead and use these scissors. These are so cool. To go ahead and pull up. So you're going to want to pull your strings forward, snip them. And again, this is only if you're doing the cover stitch, and then pull them back, because by doing it this way, it'll lock your stitch in place. And then you're free to cut. You did it. You did it. You did it. Yay, Felicimos. You did it. That's right. You went ahead and you installed that binding like the boss that you are. So if you like skill drills like this, go ahead and drop a comment, drop me some love, and let me know what kind of skills you want to see me do next. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, like, and share this with someone who you think would need a little skill drill and practice on how to do binding of their own. And with that, I'll catch you all on the next video.